limitations. And possibility is about the willingness to overcome those limitations. Then being aware of the risks and opportunities imposed by the external environment. So various tools can be used to have that clear understanding. The most common being the PESTEL. And last but not the least, we've been talking about choices, being bold and courageous to choose where to play and how to win. Look, this looks like big issues, but they are not. And like I keep emphasizing, the majority of the people are at the bottom of the pyramid, and they must be able to make choices with courage, with boldness. Cultivating that environment where they can do that is the role we play as HR practitioners. But environment of fear, where people take every decision to their supervisors, is not an environment that will be agile. It's not an environment that will win. So this is all about ensuring that every single resource, every single human resource in the system has that environment that encourages boldness, courage, an environment that provides them sufficient information for them to make the decisions, no matter how tiny those decisions are. It's like developing their own daily strategy for delivering what is expected of them. And I'm sure Yemi and the others will be showing us, giving us insights on how we could create such environment. Next slide, please. And here I'm rounding up. It's a cartoon. And in the cartoon, you see the manager sitting at the table, and this smart, brilliant, fresh graduate has a bright idea and presented it to the manager. And the response of the manager is, well, I recognize your fresh, innovative, and creative perspective. However, here, we prefer stale, traditional, tried and true thinking. You see, what makes or kills corporate strategists in the workplace is the strangulating hold of failed leaders or overconfident and rooted leaders, sometimes referred to as ancient of days. You know, they've been doing this forever. That's the way we've always done it. You come with a new idea, they shoot it down even before it arrives. They kill change-friendly work environments. They frustrate thinkers and innovators. So as we've talked about the kind of environment that we need to create for all our people to become strategic thinkers, it doesn't have to be big vision, big strategies. It could be as simple as, look, how do we move this material from here to there? There are options. There are choices to be made. Every human resource, every personnel, every employee in the organization should have the environment, sufficient information to make those decisions in their work areas that are important for delivering the expectations the business has for them. And no matter how small or big the decisions are, if they are not able to make it, the business loses time and becomes less and less agile than competition. So in conclusion, go to the next slide, please. And this is where I'll wrap it up. Change is constant and is becoming faster and faster by the day. You can imagine how frequently Samsung releases new versions of their phones. You can imagine how COVID, transmutes from one variant to another, how frequently that. And by the way, even those that are ahead of COVID, we are learning that they will still have some medical issues for quite a number of years to come.
This guy said, wow. I said,
all right, thank you. But can you please mute your microphone? So one that had emerged immediately is the fact that some who have lost their sense of smell or taste, even after being fully or in quotes, being fully healed, and after recovering from COVID, they still experience a loss of those senses to a large extent. So things are changing. There is less and less understanding of the next changes we should be expecting. So every organization will need every human resource in the corporate entity to be agile enough to be equipped with some, values, policies, and processes, but be given the space to be bold, to be courageous, to make decisions when required. Otherwise, it will be too late by the time they go back and forth through the bureaucracy. We need thinkers. We need thinkers in the corporate environment. People that could imagine or picture the end beginning. They can picture the end that they desire, that the business desire, that they themselves desire, and see possibilities as nothing. People talk about thinking out of the box. Now people need to think in 4 dimensions, not just 3. A box has 3 dimensions. You still need thinking in space, thinking in time. And that means no box, or the box is just moving all over the place. And the sky is no longer the limit. We could see people going to space now who are not astronauts, just going to space for excursion, holidays, and so. Then digital has come to stay. When we were in school, we learned Fortran 4, Fortran 7, and all those computer languages. Now you don't need all those languages and processors and compilers anymore. In actual fact, coding apps will become part of our life the same way that developing PowerPoint slides or writing essays in the various international languages have become. So life will become more and more virtual. We're having this session right now. I'm right in my room and reaching out to all of you, my friends and colleagues. That's the kind of life we should prepare for. So artificial intelligence, which looks back at what has happened and project into what would happen in the future. That's the software part of it, the same way our brain is. And the robots, which provides the body, the hardware that executes the instructions. And machine learning, which is helping further, to build accuracy of the artificial intelligence and helping to exploit big data. All of these will keep changing our world. Therefore, the human resource becomes even more and more important. But rather than the human resource that waits for instruction, what we need now are corporate strategists, people that can make choices. Strategy sounds like a big word. It's no longer that big. It's now both big and small. Daily, we make decisions. And those decisions are driven by our thinking. And based on our decisions, we take actions and get the desired outcome or the undesired outcome. The challenge before all of us is to make every single person in our corporate entities thinkers that have the environment to make the right decision and take the right action so that the corporate vision can be accomplished. Thank you very much for sparing the time to listen to me. I wish all of us an exciting learning journey with my colleagues that will be taking us through the 4 sessions coming for the rest of the day. Thank you, DCSL, for this opportunity. God bless you all.
Thank you, Mr. Adedira. Thank you for a wonderful keynote address. And I believe that you've done justice to the topic. And I think the major fact is reminding all employers that you need to create the right environment that employees will thrive in or make them to be creative and innovators of different ideas. And we also talking about the machine learning, the AIs, and still you let us understand that despite the fact of having all these in place, you still need to focus more on human resource that will be able to not wait for instruction, but they'll be able to act on their own and be able to achieve success with that. I think in the chat box, do you have any questions to the audience now for Mr. Adediran before he takes his leave? Okay, there's a question for you, Mr. Adediran. One of the audience wants you to provide answer to this question. Who creates enabling environment for human resources? Is it the line manager or management or the board?
It's a joint effort of the line managers and the HR function, but the ownership is strictly with the line managers. So the line managers, again, don't forget these line managers are employees as well. And their role is to also be strategic thinkers. They understand the expectations that the business has for them. They understand the corporate vision. They understand the short, medium, long-term vision of the corporate entity. They also have line managers, and their line managers are to play similar roles that they will play for those who are in their own teams. So in order for them to deliver, then they ensure that their associates are able to also have that same level of clarity of what is expected of them as individuals and of them as a team collectively. And they ensure that the environment for those individuals, here we're talking humans, robots, you can replicate to a high level of accuracy robots of similar structure and features. But human beings are not the same. So I'm 6 feet plus. I have colleagues that are 5 feet plus. The size of our chairs and tables, the height of our tables, will have to take into consideration all those peculiar needs we have. We have colleagues that live 50 kilometers away from office, and we have those who live next door. So it's the line manager that should know all these level of details about his or her associates and ensure that the task that is placed before them, they are able to overcome the limitations, that would be form of barriers in their efforts to deliver and discharge what is expected of them. And they're able to make choices boldly, courageously. I give an example. Look, if you have an employee that has family issues at home, it's not one size fits all kind of treatment. You don't tell everyone, oh, this is the rule. Whereas the circumstances, the individual circumstances of those who are having issues at home will impact how they are able to deliver, along or in line with those rules. So the line manager is closer to the employees. He or she is closer to their individual peculiar situations. As long as the rule will not be broken, he or she is the one that can identify how the rules could be bent to accommodate the individual peculiar circumstances. And the role of HR is to equip these line managers and these employees with the right tools, with the right processes, looking at the bigger picture, ensuring that there will be no negative impact on the core values, the DNA of the organization. So an organization that says, oh, we treat everybody fairly, must treat everybody fairly at all times. And the HR function should collaborate with the line to ensure that every decision made, every provision made can be explained within that same context of fair treatment of everyone. So it's a collaborative effort between the line managers and the HR function. However, the ownership is with the line, meaning the line must know what is happening, initiate the need for interventions that will help the employees to have the right environment, while the global structure is provided by the HR function. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Adedire. Just one last question for you before we let you go. One of the audience asked a question about what are your recommendations for the strategic, innovative, and agile HRM navigate getting management approvals?
Sorry, could you come with the question again?
Okay. One of the participants asking, what are your recommendations for the strategic, innovative, and agile HRM, and also how to navigate getting management approvals?
Okay. You know, a lot of people complain about management not approving their ideas. What I have seen over the years is some of our colleagues do not think like business leaders would think. We all, at whatever level we find ourselves, we are first of all business leaders. We're in HR not to practice HR, but to provide HR support, HR cutting-edge expertise for the business to win. I repeat, we are in it to provide cutting-edge HR expertise for the business to win. So I've seen recommendations coming from my colleagues like, oh, let's introduce this benefit, let's introduce that benefit. And I asked them, first thing that every one of us, be it HR or sales or marketing or finance, must keep in mind is when you are making a recommendation, it should be a recommendation to solve a problem or to avoid a problem that could come. I prefer the second one. You are proactive. Now, what will a business consider to be a problem? The business will consider anything that threatens the continual existence of the business as a problem. Anything that threatens the revenue stream and growth of the business as a problem. Anything that threatens the profit margin and the expansion of that margin over time as a problem. And anything that will make the business take advantage of the opportunities in the marketplace at a slower pace than competition as a problem. So when you are making a proposal, for instance, for a benefit, first thing is for you to state the problem you are trying to address. What's the problem statement? Second thing is to now show that not making that investment will make any of those priorities I've listed be at risk for the business. And lastly, you should be able to show that the investment you are planning to make in order to implement that initiative will give a return that's more than the quantum of fund you are committing to that investment, or help protect the business against the loss of fund that is more than what you're asking the business to invest. So no business leader in his or her right senses, and by the way, some are not, but they are very few. Most business leaders are in their right senses. There is no business leader in his or her right senses that will see an opportunity to make an investment of $1 million on a corporate entity and generate in return within a year or two $5 million, and will say no, unless your proof of concept is not making logical sense. So I've had a lot of, I have great ideas, but my CEO should sit down. Your CEO is looking for money. Your CEO is not stupid. But the problem is, oftentimes we've not thought the ideas through. Oftentimes we've not done the basic back of the envelope calculations. I'll give you an example. I had an experience recently in my workplace, and I anticipated the problem would come. And I went to my boss. I said, look, we need to make this investment so that we avoid this particular crisis. He agreed with me, but he said, look, Wale, that should be coming from the guys leading the BUs. Let each of them take their BUs and come up with it. Well, in the process of they doing that, we lost a little time, and we saw the negative consequence of not having it. So the CEO, the line manager, your supervisor is looking for those ideas. It's looking for your recommendations, but they must be sound. They must be solving a business problem. You don't fix what is not broken. If you're just doing it for the sake of, oh, let's do it so we become popular. Business is not about popularity contest. It's not a charity organization. Business will do good, but the lifeblood of the business, for the business to continue to exist, is how well that business makes money. And you don't keep eroding your margin and expect that the business will continue to exist. People talk about, oh, but the business made so much profit last year. Why can't they do this now? I keep telling them, that profit that you see businesses declare, they've been allocated to the various stakeholders. Some of us don't even pay attention to dividends paid by those that are publicly quoted. Those dividends may be 30 kobo or 1 naira per unit, but you know how many billions of units the business has. And by the time you look at the total spend on dividend, and you now look at the profit they made, you can see that the chunk of it had gone into dividends. And they still have to allocate to other stakeholders, like employees, like the community where they operate. They need to do CSR. So when you now go into a new year and you say, oh, you must increase my salaries. And if you don't, it's not worth hanging around. What you have not considered is the funding of the salary increase you are proposing, or the new benefit you are trying to introduce, will come not from the profit, because that profit is already allocated to the different stakeholders. It will come from the profit growth that the business is able to create. In other words, what we generated last year, we've shared among all the stakeholders. This year, we're going to generate more than that, so that there will be an extra that we can now share again for new things. And if, unfortunately, you generate lower, what that means is actually salary should reduce, but oftentimes we can't do that. That would be suicide. So what we do is we reduce dividends, we reduce some other stakeholders' allocations. So ideas that will solve business problems. I'm not talking about just any problem. Ideas that will solve business problems. Business problems are related to those priorities of the business, will always be approved by a sane business leader. And I can tell you, most business leaders are sane. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Adediro, for your time and for sharing your wealth of knowledge with all of us. Really appreciate you. Thank you so much. To the participants, we'll be deploying a poll shortly, and we urge you to complete it within 1 minute, so that you can give us feedback on Mr. Adediro's presentation before we move on to the next presenter. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much for completing the. So we're moving to the next presenter, and our next presenter is Ms. Olufumilola Buckner. She will be presenting on employee engagement, maximizing internal talent. So I'll just talk a little bit about the profile of Ms. Buckner. Ms. Buckner is a regional HR expert with over 15 years experience. She started her HR career in London, where she worked as a recruitment consultant at Peak Recruitment Agency. Upon her return, she worked as HR consultant at Fox and Cedar Limited, where she was recruitment team lead. Ms. Buckner also proceeded to work with Samsung Electronics West Africa, where she was the talent development manager for West Africa, Nigeria, Ghana, Senegal, Cameroon, and Cote d'Ivoire. She's currently an HR resource on the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation of $2 million grant to the Lagos State Primary Health Project implementation phase. Buckner, you're highly welcome to today's breakfast session, and we look forward to learning from you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, can I present? Can I? Because I've got a couple of slides.
Okay, please, you can share screen.
Okay, so right. Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am, we can.
All right, thank you very much.
Yes, we can.
Yes, okay. Thank you very much. I'm really excited to be here, and I was part of the previous session, as usual, very insightful, coming from Mr. Wale Adediran, of course, So I'm just going to go quickly into the presentation for today, and the topic is, of course, employee engagement and driving that using internal talent mobility. Well, you've done a little bit of introduction, but in terms of my own agenda, I had that as well. So maybe just a quick aerial view of myself. I'm a graduate of the University of Lagos. I studied industrial relations and personnel management. I'm a global practitioner in human resources, certified by Human Resource Certification Institute. I'm a cross-regional HR professional with experience working across various industries and organizations, and these include KPMG Smart Telecom, Samsung Electronics, West Africa, and Unilever. I currently own and manage an HR consulting firm, helping organizations achieve success through their people. Now, the next thing on my agenda will be to talk about to have a little bit of definition so that it sets the tone of the conversation, and then we'll bring everything together and look at the various strategies that organizations can put in place to drive this. So what is employee engagement? And to be honest, there are just several definitions, there's several researches, there's several white papers around it. It's something that a lot of HR talent, thought leaders keep talking about. But according to David McLeod, and they did an extensive research on what employee engagement is and all of that. But according to this guy, he says that it is just how we create the conditions in which employees offer more of their capability and potential. Some people say it's psychological safety, and I totally agree. Some people say it's giving employee, the voice of employee, and I totally agree. And I went ahead to put my own definition there, and I think that it's a mindset that fosters an environment where employees are committed to the organization's goals and values. They are committed to, they're motivated and committed to success, but with a sense of ownership and belonging. So it's not just about the organization, it's a two-way street. I'm giving to you and I'm getting back in return on the employee's side of the lens. Then, the organization is also giving to you and taking back a return. So like I said, it's a two-way street. Now, in terms of the other aspect of today's topic, which is internal talent mobility, what does it mean? And it's very simple. There are different things that it is called. Some call it career mobility, some call it employee mobility. But basically, it just means that it is the movement of existing employees within a company, and it can be lateral or it can be vertical. We'll come to that later. So employee engagement from an employee's perspective is me having a voice, right? Me not being afraid to say my mind. Okay. You're asking, sorry. I'm so sorry. Technology sometimes, yeah. So it's about me having a voice, me having a voice, me being able to be myself. And that also speaks to the psychological safety aspect of it. Me being able to bring the essence of who I am, the totality of my person to the place of work. So me being able to have a voice, also in decision making. It doesn't mean that my contributions will be taken at all times, but at least I will be listened to, and whatever I'm contributing matters. It is understanding my role and how it impacts the overall performance of the organization and how it impacts the success of my team and the organization as a whole. Sorry, this thing is distracting me. Yeah. It is understanding the goals and objectives of the organization. It is being fully included in my team and in the organization. A lot of people are alienated at work. And if we really want to be honest with ourselves, there are a lot of toxic workplace situations in our country. I mean, we know some of them. In some cases, we are even the ones contributing, to this toxicity at work, So it is about being trusted and empowered. You trust me and you empower me to deliver on my job. It is about being supported in getting new skills and being developed. And we'll look at how the different strategies of internal employee mobility even enhances that. It is being recognized for a job well done. And it is about me just being happy about work. Like I wake up today and I'm like, oh yeah, I know what I'm doing at work today. I know, I'm so happy to, be at work today. I'm going to talk to this colleague. This is the colleague that I'm going to have lunch with today. Or, you're just generally happy about being in that organization or being on that team. Now, from an employer's point of view, this is what employee engagement is. Sorry. Of course, they want commitment from employees. They want their employees to become advocates of the brand, to clients, to users, and to customers. You see a lot of people, when you go on LinkedIn today, people are actually proud to say, I'm on this team, I joined this organization, the process was this, the manager, the interviewer treated me well. These are the things. It starts from the beginning. Employee engagement is not when somebody enters the organization. It is the kind of candidate experience that you even give them as well, during the interview process, because, research shows that a lot of candidates make up their mind from the interaction that they have at recruitment process anyway. But moving on quickly, it is employees going the extra mile to finish a piece of work. Because really, if you're committed to an organization, if you're happy about working in a place, if you're excited about the project that you're working on, you want to be committed to finishing that piece of work that you're working on, right? Employers want positive attitudes and behaviors from employees. They want trusted and empowered employees. No, this thing is moving, is shifting. Okay, I think there's a mix up on that slide, but basically in summary, those are some of the things that employers are looking for in terms of employee engagement. And now in terms of internal talent mobility, I've already described what it is. It's just the existing employees of an organization moving within that organization. And like I said, it can be lateral, which is movement from one role to another with the same level of seniority. So it can be me now being an HR manager, but maybe I'm moving to the finance function, maybe because in my first degree, I have a BSc in accounting and I've done a CCA and I have transferable skills that, I can use to do that. Or maybe even within HR, just moving from one aspect of HR to another aspect of HR, but with the same level of seniority. And it can be vertical, and that speaks to promotion. So somebody moving from a lower cadre to a higher cadre. So let's say a vice president or a manager moving to a senior manager, that sort of thing. Now, the next slide, the case for internal employee, and I looked at the different cases that have been presented to say, this is a good thing. This is what will drive employee engagement. And in actual fact, every organization should embrace this, and a lot of big organizations already are. I came in late to the meeting, so I don't know if there are HR managers of smaller organizations. I consult for SMEs anyway. But when I was in Unilever, I forget the guy's name now, but I remember his face so well. Our global VP Human Resources was actually an engineer who had been in the system for the longest time, and he was in manufacturing. He was on the factory floors and all of that. But he eventually became global VP of HR. Now, this was somebody who understood the business so well. I think he even started as a graduate trainee, and he's retired now, but he worked in Unilever for about maybe 30 years or maybe 25 years or something. But they saw that he had the skills, he had internal networks to work for him. And of course, he was going to have the right support. He wasn't going to do the nitty-gritty work anyway. It was a leadership role, right? But he understood the business. He had transferable skills, and he had, internal networks to support what he was going to do. So it was easy for him to transition from being an engineer to being an HR leader. And he did that very well. He was very celebrated when he was leaving Unilever. So that is an example. And, that speaks to, somebody having an enriched career, somebody being fulfilled at work and generally in life. In Coca-Cola, well, if what I'm hearing is right, even in Coca-Cola, the bottling company, I understand that the erstwhile HR head is moving to another part of the business, so I don't know specifically what part of the business it is, but it's definitely not HR. So the person is moving to another part of the business. And even from what I heard, they were like, this person is even the sort of person that can become an MD. It's very unusual for you to see HR people becoming MD in big organizations, but I'm happy to hear this kind of news coming out, especially from even Nigeria as well. They've identified somebody with very rich, leadership skills that can take that position. I guess there are other people that are being prepared for it as well. But, somebody who is moving from an HR function to a totally different part of the business to go and, succeed and, just make things happen. I'm going to talk about the Google Bungee cover. The Google Bungee cover is really about, and I think it's also in my next slide. So maybe I should go to my next slide and talk about it, because I'm going to talk about the different strategies. So using maternity leave covers to develop people in the organization, and that is the Google Bungee cover. So basically in Google, if somebody is going on a leave of absence, say for maternity, for example, and of course we know that in other clients, maternity can go on for as long as a year, for people to be away. They look for an internal person to take that position. And it is a way of upskilling that person. It is a way, and it can be somebody in the function already. So maybe somebody reporting to that person that is going on maternity leave already, or it can even be somebody from outside that function to take that role. What it does is that it also even keeps the knowledge in the organization. So you are, enriching other people's career and preparing them for, the next level and just giving them the right skills, upskilling and all of that. Another good thing about this thing that they do in Google is that sometimes, or in most cases, the person that is going on maternity leave does not have to worry about, in my absence, it's not going to do my job very well. They even identify, who they want to cover for them when they're going away. Other strategies include job shadowing, stretched projects. I cannot even begin to emphasize how this is very important. And it's a case of somebody still holding their own function, but you give them projects in other departments or in other functions so that you introduce them to other aspects of the business. A lot of forward-thinking organizations are using this now. So somebody can be in finance, but they are doing HR projects. You can include them in recruitment projects, or maybe any other project that you are doing in HR. That, I mean, when I was in Unilever, we did this. It was a diversity and inclusion project, and we drew people from other functions to be part of it. We were launching it in Nigeria, and it was called Mamas and Papas Room. Just to give support to support to employees who were, new mothers or new fathers in the business and all of that. So that included even building a Mamas and Papas Room, like places where these people, when they come back to work after they resume from their maternity or time away, they can go there and relax. They can, express milk and all of that, and just, be generally okay. So a job rotation, of course, we all know a lot of organizations do that at graduate trainee level. So where, again, I speak from experience in Unilever, when people come on a graduate trainee program, then when I was in Unilever, they will go around different functions. So they maybe spend 3 months there, spend 3 months there before they finally settle into a function. But then again, it doesn't mean that I've seen somebody move from HR to brands or brand and marketing in Unilever before, So and that was after a long time that they had settled in HR. So just moving people around in the organization, it helps you, because look at it. It actually costs a lot. And I'm not advocating for don't bring people from the outside. That also has its benefits, because you infuse new energy, new ideas, innovation into the system when you bring people from outside. But when you also rotate people in the organization, these are people that they already know the organization inside out. They also have their own innovative ideas that they are bringing from their function to another function and things like that. I've talked about leave of absence covers and cross-team meeting attendance. Now I forget whether it's Udemy or no, I think it's Udemy, or is it Udemy that they call it, or either Salesforce, where typically in an organization, where you see is that finance team is having their own meeting, HR team is having their meeting, marketing team is having their meeting. It's a very alien for you as an HR person to go and sit in marketing people's meeting, or as a finance person go and sit in marketing meeting. But this particular organization is encouraging that, because in any case, you are not discussing anything that's classified information. But what that does is that it exposes you as somebody in another function to what another function is doing, and you have an idea. And I experienced a bit of that when I was HR business partner to the tax practice in KPMG. I used to attend their technical session. Now, I mean, I am not a tax resource or a tax thought leader or anything, but it was from there that I gathered a little bit of, knowledge about tax management in Nigeria. I'm sure some of those things have changed now. But I mean, then I could speak in some circles about tax, because I will remember that, they talked about transfer pricing the other day. They talked about, I've forgotten the things, CIT, corporate income tax, and different things. Then it was many years ago. So allowing other functions to attend your meetings, whether they be technical meetings or just general meetings, that is also another way of encouraging internal talent mobility, because it elicits people's interest in that function. And when there's a vacancy, you can easily put them there. Now, what does success look like when you get it right? You have an engaged workforce, you have high performance teams, and of course that speaks to productivity, loyalty, commitment to work, reduced absenteeism. People are not falling sick all the time because they're actually happy to be at work. They're not taking days off work, and all of that. And all of this, at the end of the day, like Mr. Adediro said, businesses are in business to make money, right? So at the end of the day, it also speaks to profitability. I don't know how much I've exhausted my time, but really, to be honest, I've come to the end of my presentation. And I think that this is where we take questions, contributions, because nobody knows it all. Of course, I'm sure there are people in the audience that, they, can also contribute, or they have ideas, or they have, insight into ways that, strategies around this are being put in place and what the success story looks like. So thank you very much. I'm done.
Thank you very much, Ms. Bucknor, and we really appreciate your time and this, sharing your wealth of experience with us. And I think we can pick some important lessons from your presentation, which you let us understand the employer's perspective from employee engagement, and also for employees to understand the employer's perspective with respect to their own engagement also. And for you to tell us more about the internal talent mobility, in which some multinational companies, how they carry out their own internal talent mobility, and also the strategies used, and which really are really not the part of the team meeting attendance, which is very good with respect to achieving the internal talent mobility. So I think the floor is open for the audience to let us start having the question for Ms. Bucknor, so that she can explain to us further where we need clarity on our presentation. Okay, we have a question for you. One of the audience is asking, how do you deal with a management team that is adverse to staff engagement, and how to frustrate staff and in turn there is high attrition?
Okay, I mean, to be honest, that's a tough question. And when you say management, I would like to look at the structure of the business. Do you mean a one-man business, or do you mean a big business like a multinational that has different facets of different leaders constituting management? But at the end of the day, okay, so let me try and answer the question. I'm not even really sure from what. So I think that sometimes it's about persuasion, and I think that Mr. Adediro touched on that before. It's about persuasion. It's about helping them see how this benefits the business on the long run. But of course, like he also said, there are people that are very unreasonable, and no matter how much you try and make them see how this benefits their business or the business in general, they will still be out to frustrate you. In that case, there is not much that you can do. And I think that is the point where you begin to look for another place where your values and your contributions are recognized and are required, right? But like I said, persuasion goes a long way, helping people see the reason why you want them to take a particular decision. And in the absence of that, I mean, there is really nothing you can do, because a lot of times I see even HR doing HR for HR. A lot of our initiatives, there's no buy-in at the management level. It's just HR for HR. You just be running around doing what you think you should do as an HR person, or as an HR manager, as an HR lead. But if there's no buy-in from the top, really it's the top that will help you drive it. And that's the truth of the matter. So persuasion, I would say persuasion. And if you go the first time, they don't listen to you, you can go the second time. Also read the room. When is someone likely to listen to you? Sometimes I think that we go and sell ideas to people at the wrong time, Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Bucknor. I think I don't think we have any further questions.
Sorry, I can't hear you. Your volume is a bit low.
I don't think we have any further questions for you. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, okay. So thank you very much for the great insight on the presentation, employee engagement, maximizing internal talent mobility. Thank you so much for your time. And to the audience, we'll be taking a poll now, so that you can give us feedback on Ms. Bucknor presentation. At least we'll have to do that within a minute. Thank you. Okay, participants, thank you so much for your feedback. Then we'll move to the next presentation. And our presenter is Mr. Yemi Fashion, who will be presenting on embracing a hybrid workforce. Can you please project Mr. Fashion?
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Please confirm that you can hear me.
We can.
Okay, all right, thank you very much. Thanks for your time. You need to bear with me. I am in transit, but I want to believe that the connectivity will be great as we go on for the next couple of minutes. Can I go on?
Just a little bit, Mr. Fashion, just a little bit, just to read your profile.
No worry, Ibrahim. Not to worry about that. Let's save some time on that. Don't worry. Let's move on.
Okay,
don't worry about the profile. All right.
Okay.
Thanks very much. Okay, so thanks for inviting me, and it's a real pleasure to be here this morning to engage for the next couple of minutes around the hybrid work culture and why we must embrace it. Basically, that's what we want to be talking about. Now, what I have done is to title my conversation. I don't have any slides to share. We just go through the conversation for the next about 15, 20 minutes, 25, and then I'll take a couple of questions as well. I've said that it's a now of work, and we have the new landscape around the way we work. We are talking about the future of work for quite some time, I guess before the pandemic, and right after the pandemic, it became the new reality. The now of work. We are not waiting for things to change anymore. Things have drastically changed. I listened to Wale giving his presentation. I listened to Fumi as well. But that's the reality. We are within already a new landscape of work, and that's the reality. So how do we therefore see the realities on ground with respect to a hybrid work culture and the opportunities that exist for organizations and for individuals? I think that's the crux of the conversation. And I'm going to be going through about 5 points, basically looking at the new realities and also the opportunities that we should leverage for the workforce and the workplace. The first thing I'd like to say is that the future has come. That's the new. We don't have a choice anymore but to accept the new reality. Things are not likely to go back to how they were prior to the pandemic. Just this morning, I was reading a joke or a meme, HR meme, in one of my HR groups, and somebody said competition was calling people back to work, and we were just waiting. As people were resigning, we were getting their talents. And the individual said that for about a week or 2 weeks now, they've been able to recruit 15 people from competition, because the competition that we were talking about is not yet living with the new reality that we are not going to go back to the way we were prior to now. So the first thing that we need to do, and this is everyone, this is employee, this is employer, this is line manager, this is team, this is everyone within the workforce. We need to understand the fact that the reality, the new reality has come, and things are not going to go back to how they were. We've got to settle into that reality, and the opportunity that will exist for us, for the organization, so that we can continue to not only survive, but thrive, is to now look at new ways of redesigning work. We've got to redesign work, we've got to redesign the workplace, and we've got to redesign the workforce. Those are the opportunities that exist for us at the moment. If we don't quickly accept that reality, what will happen is that we will wake up one day and the workplace, the work, and the workforce will totally have changed beyond anybody's imagination, and we'll not be able to realize how really far gone behind we were as an organization. So number one is accept the new work or the new world of work. Number two, and look at how best to redesign the workforce, and the workplace. And this is not going to be a one size fits all. Each organization will need to determine exactly where it is in its life cycle and determine what best works for it, and not the same the same old, number one, and also not a copy and paste template for every organization. So that's the first opportunity, which is to redesign how things are done, redesign relationships, redesign processes, re-embrace technology. We just have to do things in a different way. That's number one. Number two, the meaning of the word office has totally changed. Office used to be the fact that I'm going to work, I'm going to the office, and I get on the 3rd Mainland Bridge and I go to Ikoyi or via Ikorodu Road or Ikeja or anywhere and say that I'm going to the office. But that has totally changed. That particular word or concept or location has now totally evolved. Office is now where work is. Work is where work is. It's not a location-based conversation or a location-based concept anymore. It is wherever work is. So as I speak to you, I am waiting to have another conversation with a client, with some of my partners, and I'm in the car now, and I'm having this conversation without any constraint, because conversations can happen anywhere. Learning can take place at any time, and it's the same place within the scope of what office constitutes today. It is no longer a location with 4 walls and 12 floors and all that. Absolutely not. I do realize that so many or some organizations are still battling with the new realities. Some are saying, no, that's the way to go. We're never going to go back to the old ways. Others have struggled with performance and culture, and therefore they're thinking, no, let everybody come back to the office. And if you go back to my first point, I think what we need to do is a redesigning of what we really call office, so that we can redesign the work, we can redesign the workplace, and we can also redesign or redefine the workforce. I totally accept the fact that not all roles, not all jobs can be done from anywhere or from home. If you're in manufacturing or FMCG, you know that, yeah, people still need to be at a plant. People still need to be at the factories. That is given. But it doesn't mean that because the factory workers cannot be redesigned, so the office workers cannot. No. We need to look at the peculiarities of each circumstance, each organization, and like I said, its evolution. It is now the opportunity, the concept of the word office will therefore be that we need to find better ways of collaboration. The new competitive advantage for organizations is to find the best way for teams wherever they work from. Collaboration is the name of the game. We are moving away from concentrating on individuals for delivery of KPIs or results for the organization to team collaboration. And if some of us will probably know there are several organizations that are operating from multiple locations. Even before the pandemic, even before the new realities, some organizations were already operating from multiple locations, and collaboration was becoming a competitive advantage for them. More so now, in the now of work, collaboration, teamwork is the name of the game. We need to constantly, the opportunity is for us to constantly get the best out of teams. New work tools, new work culture, marrying the physical with the remote. I am totally aware, given the conversations that we have daily with people, some organizations are struggling with culture. Because, I mean, when we were all together, things were smoother, we could communicate better. But now that some are remote, some are in our offices, it's been tough. What I would say is that there's a need to take 1 or 2 steps backwards and go back again to number one and see how we are redesigning and redefining. What we have also found out, what research has said, is that many organizations are doing a copy and paste situation, right? Oh, people are working from home, we'll work from home. People are doing hybrid, we will. People are doing remote, we will. No, it should be a thorough analysis of as is, and therefore how ready is our own organization to redefine the concept of office. But we must go back to the fact that collaboration is extremely, extremely important. So let's look at teams, let's look at collaboration. Some are at home, some are in the office, 80% at home, 80% in the office, or whatever the combinations are for different organizations. what is important is getting the best out of teams through collaboration has become a major competitive advantage for organizations, and opportunities exist in there. And I'm saying here that please don't try to force it. Don't try to be perfect in your journey towards a hybrid or a remote work culture. We are all learning the new ways of doing things. That's the reality. But we've got to learn quickly. We've got to make mistakes quickly, learn quickly, and then move on. We've got to be agile in our approach to learning the new realities. Now, the third thing I'll talk about is, despite the fact that we are not all at work or we're not all at home, we're doing hybrid, one of the important things we cannot overemphasize is mental health and well-being of employees. And research has shown that this will be a catalyst for organizational growth going forward. The ability of leadership or organizational management to still ensure that despite all the changes, the rapid changes happening and the changes that will still happen, that the workforce is in a great state of mental health, that there is still resilience inbuilt in the organization, that well-being is generally considered, despite the fact that people are seen or not seen. That will be the catalyst for change and for growth for many organizations. And this will also portend some opportunities. Number one, understand that welfare or the workforce, they thrive better in an environment where they have labeled their office. I know that some individuals still prefer to go to work for whatever reason. Some will say, no, work from home works for me. Some will say I'll do 1 week in, 1 week out, or 2 days in, 2 days out. But what's important for the organization is to understand that the workforce, we need to understand them within their own environment. So again, we are going to move away from generalized policies. We are going to move away from generalized work processes. We are going to fit into where people have called their offices. And what it means is that for people to have a great state of mental health, for them to be in a great state of well-being, we need to make the climate safe for employees psychologically. And when I say make the climate safe, again, remember that we're not saying make the office environment, 4 walls, safe psychologically. We're saying that wherever people have decided, have chosen to work from, let's continue to look at them from a point of view of psychological safety. They must be, even if I don't come to work within a year or maybe 2 years, they still must feel that connection with the organization that cares about my well-being, that cares about my progress, about my success, about my career. There must be a constant, there must be many footprints of psychological connection between line manager representing the organization and the employees. So make the climate very safe. The conversations around toxicity is really rife right now. And please don't tell me that this is just about Nigeria. It's a global phenomenon. We read, we engage, we listen to conversations where in very many instances, employees are saying that the environment isn't safe for them anymore. And therefore they're looking at the next best option. We've been talking about the era of the Great Resignation. People are saying, okay, yeah, I might not be able to handle this. My mental health is more important. My well-being is more important. Please don't get me wrong. I'm not canvassing for excuses of mental health or well-being as a way of escape from non-performance. That's a totally different conversation. And I know that this is also possible. Employees coming late to work, employees not performing, and when you engage with them and ask them, they just want to talk about my mental health, my well-being. No, we're not talking about such issues. We're talking about the real deal. We're talking about employees who really should feel that the employer or the organization feels for my well-being, my psychological safety. So make the office wherever that office is located, wherever it is, make the office for employees a kind of safe zone that they want to go in and come out without feeling emotionally or psychologically battered. This is I think the war for talent is going into, or has gone into another phase. It's 3.0 now, and it's a zero-sum game. Winner takes all. There are many people looking for jobs, but the definition of talent, the game changers, those who will add value to the business, is a different ballgame. And when you speak with those in that category, you know that it's important for them to be in a space where they feel safe. So the opportunity is therefore for the organization to make the climate very safe for the employees. The fourth thing is around new leadership styles. What brought us here will not take us further. We require, in today's work culture hybrid mode, new leadership styles for the workforce to thrive. The traditional leadership style of hierarchy, top to bottom communication is giving way, or has given way right now for organizations that will succeed in the marketplace. It's given way to more organic leadership style. It is no longer the era of I know it all because I am the boss. And the opportunity, therefore, for us in the organizations, we probably, you could say that this is a fallacy of generalization, but permit me to still make that statement. We could say that corporate Nigeria has failed in the bid to get individuals ready for leadership positions before we throw them in the deep. It would be great for us to look at talent from a succession planning perspective, look at them from a 3 to 5 year horizon, and say these individuals will go into leadership positions. Therefore, what must I do to get them ready for those positions? But what we tend to see is that people are churning out the numbers, they are delivering in terms of the results, technical results, and we continue to promote them. At some point, we then promote them into leadership position, but nobody got them ready. And we begin to see the effect on the workforce. And we are talking now, everybody's talking about the era of the Great Resignation. So we need to move into an era where leadership recognizes team empowerment, decentralized decision-making. Like I said, it is no longer the boss, the manager knows everything. No, like I said, again, it's the era of collaboration. And for decision-making to be effective in the current work culture, everyone needs to be carried along. So team empowerment is critical. Decentralized decision-making, strength-based work allocation. It is not who is available for a role. We need to do a thorough analysis of who are we allocating roles to. We need to think about, and this is a leadership body. Absolutely a leadership body. If you leave individuals to choices, I'm aware that so many people will not be doing the things they want to do, but we can't leave it to people's choices. So we are calling leadership to a higher level, to a higher pedestal, given the new work mode of work from home and work from the office. For individuals who still recognize that collaboration is key, team empowerment is key, decentralized decision-making, this is the time to start rewarding teams and not individuals, because people are, permit me to use the word, scattered at different locations or isolated at different places, and they're still working together to achieve results. If the organization is therefore seeing results, please let's not isolate individuals for reward. The opportunity for reward for individuals exists at this moment. And the last thing under that leadership conversation is feedback. Leaders must put themselves in a place where they see feedback as a gift, constant feedback. The 3 critical competencies that I see for leaders going into 2022 and beyond are: number 1, leading with humility, leading with empathy, and leading with connectedness. We must, as leaders, remain connected with the team so that the team can remain connected with the vision. And there's only one way to excellently deliver on our leadership promises, and that is by remaining committed to remaining connected to the teams that we lead. And also, when I use leadership in a loose form. I am not speaking to the CEO, Keda, or the executive director, or the functional heads only. I'm talking to individuals who lead 3, who lead 5, who lead 6, unit heads. Across board, we must remain committed, connected to the team so that the team can remain committed to the vision. If people don't see leaders committed to them, it might be difficult for them to commit, therefore, to the vision of the organization. So please, leaders, in this era of I don't see my teammates, they are in Ghana, they are in Port Harcourt, but I'm still managing all of them. This is a time for us to reevaluate our leadership competencies and be sure that they are fit for purpose in today's hybrid culture. Now, the bad news, given that the pandemic happened about 2 years ago, the bad news is that for any organization that has not embraced the new realities of hybrid based on their own current realities, is that it's a bit too late. However, the good news is that the best time to plant a tree, to plant that tree maybe was 5 years ago. The next best time is now. So the journey can start now before it's too late. Wale said something during his presentation in terms of the rapidity of the changes that have happened and the changes that will still happen. So if we have lost a lot, given the fact that we were not in a readiness mode for what has happened in the last 2 years, try and imagine what will happen to us if we evaluate in another 3 years and we're not ready. So start that journey now. And there are 5 things that I would love to leave with us in terms of starting the journey now. And for those who have started the journey, maybe time to evaluate these 5 variables. Number 1, leadership alignment in terms of a hybrid culture. Please don't just do it for the sake of doing it. Align leadership so that everybody is on the same page. If we're all on the bus, we must all be going towards the same destination. Number 2, workforce engagement. Don't slam whatever option you have. Don't slam it on them. Please engage the workforce. Design thinking is the best way to go. Let's collaborate. Let's do it together. Let's engage and let's collectively design the way, the future for the organization. Number 3, assess the organizational readiness. Where are we today in terms of technology, the tools that will make hybrid work, the kind of workforce that we need? Have we bought into the vision? Is this something that we should do? We need to assess the readiness of the organization, because company A is doing it and it seems to be doing it successfully, doesn't guarantee the fact that we will do it successfully. We need to evaluate where we are on the journey. Develop a roadmap. How are we going to incrementally or sustainably implement a hybrid culture? Success is not going to happen overnight. It's going to be daily. We're going to make some mistakes. We're going to, like I said, we've got to be agile, but you've got to do it now. And the last thing is to invest in leadership capacity. Everything rises and falls on leadership, and the best way to get results out of a new way of working is to make sure that we invest in leadership capacity. Let's not continue to bonus or reward individuals who are doing very well technically, but in terms of leadership capabilities, they're letting the organization down. It's one of the reasons why attrition is high, and we've entered into the era of the Great Resignation. We must invest in leadership capacity. The final word from me, and I quote from the PwC Australia publication of October 2021, the future of work, I call that the now work. The future of work sounds complex, but it doesn't need to be complicated. Let's not look at it from a complicated perspective. It's already complex in orientation or in the framework, but let's not make it complex. Let's do the simple things. Let's put one building block over another towards the journey, towards hybrid hybrid culture, but the point is we've got to start that journey now. Keep it simple, keep it understandable, engage the workforce, invest in leadership, and I'm sure that with all this, we will begin to enjoy some level of success. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Fashion.
Thank you.
Really enjoyed your session, and because also globally this is a very topical issue, and in which both employees and employers are also focused on, and especially you telling us about redesigning the workforce and the workplace, and then and every employer should accept the reality of the new environment, and also most especially since all different teams work in different geographical location, we should move more to team collaboration on the delivery of KPIs than individual delivery. I think there's a whole lot I can say, but let me give the audience their own opportunity to ask some questions with respect to Mr. Fashion presentation. Okay, while we're waiting for audience and questions, we're going to deploy a poll now so that we can get feedback on Mr. Fashion's presentation. As usual, it's going to be a 1 minute poll. Okay, so Mr. Fashion, we have a question for you. One of the audience has asked that what are your thoughts to remunerate staff based on this hybrid workforce? And Mr. Fashion, I'll be heading.
Okay, so there is no way we are going to. Can you hear me now? I question.
Yes,
can you hear me?
Yes, please. Go ahead, please.
Okay. All right. So I was saying that there is no way we are going to separate reward from performance or productivity. Now, when we were all at work prior to the pandemic, we had issues with remuneration because we were not able to find scientific ways of relating output to reward, right? Now that we are moving into a hybrid or remote situation, the challenge remains the same. So what we need to do is overcome that challenge. How are we sure that the reward that we are giving to individuals and to teams are directly related to output or productivity? And if you ask me, it goes back to how we do performance management, right? It cannot be, reward cannot be a rule of the thumb. It can be what is the organization expecting individuals, departments, and teams to deliver, and that will roll up to what the organization will be expected to deliver in terms of numbers, in terms of customer service index, in terms of employee engagement index. It rolls up from one individual to one department, then to the entire organization. And it is only when we deliver on those results, those KPIs, that we can say that, oh, employees can therefore be rewarded. It's the same thing. What we need to concentrate on is to be sure that we are measuring the right things, measuring the right output. Maybe we need to redesign how we measure, because businesses are not, I'm not able to see that, oh, that guy is at work, therefore he's working. Oh, he's at his computer, therefore he's working. 2, what deliverables am I measuring on a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly basis? If my results are directly related to the agreed outcomes at the beginning of the year, then the reward that comes with it should be a lot easier. So let's move away from looking at individuals because, oh, they seem to be delivering, and do a deep dive. Who are the team members working with this individual to deliver on the results? So let's not concentrate on one person. Let's concentrate on the entire spectrum of the workforce and look at the teams that are delivering the results for the organization. But tie that back to what did we agree at the beginning of the year? So whether it's remote, hybrid, or fully physical work culture or work structure, there must be a constant tie, a constant connection to the agreed deliverables for the organization first, for the departments or functions, and then for the individuals. It will be a better conversation to have rather than looking at reward in isolation of performance or productivity.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fashion. I think I have one last question for you before.
Okay.
So the question from the audience, and it's quite long, so I'll read it out to you. Business owners today have a fear of employee deliverables not being met if remote systems of working are employed. Even though there are numerous methods of measuring deliverables of remote workers presented, the culture of seeing employees at their desks by many CEOs remains a stumbling block. How do we change the perception of a business owner who has a, in quote, this is the way we have been doing it for 35 years and has always worked mindset?
All right, so I'm not sure how big this business is. If it's an owner-managed business, you tend to see this tendency a lot. If it's an SME, a small SME, you tend to see all of this as well. But the point is, whoever is responsible for having that conversation with leadership will have to rely a lot on data. It is no longer an emotional reaction to a stimulus from the business owner or from leadership. It has to be data-based conversation. And I also agree with the individual asking the question. You present data, you present research work, you present statistics, and they are still stuck in their ways. We are hoping that such individuals will be in the room when we can have conversations with them. However, let me also say quickly, remember, we have agreed, we've established the fact that not every business not every role, not every function may be able to engage the hybrid work culture. We also need to be fair on employers at times. That's the reality. But I do agree that there's so many individuals who are micromanagers, as either managers, leaders, or owners, who must see you before they can part with the salary at the end of the year. But what's going to happen is such individuals or such organizations, such companies will not be able to keep talent. That's the reality. And I did say when I was given my presentation that such organizations will wake up in the next 3 years or 5 years and they'll realize that they've been left way behind of the curve. And it will be a long time before they can catch up. Some might never be able to catch up. So you will see constant attrition. You will see that people considered as talents would not thrive in such organizations, and people will always look for the next best opportunity. And the era of the great resignation might just be extended because of such individuals.
Mr. Fashion, I think one question just came. I just want to slot it in.
Okay.
While it's there with you. From one of the audience stated that line managers create leadership for team and motivate them to perform. Who is the major person or persons that determines promotion of team, line manager or HR manager?
Wale answered that question. I was listening to Wale. It's not the responsibility of HR manager or HR head or HR director to promote anyone. It is a responsibility of the line manager. I don't work with somebody in accounts, for instance. I don't see the individual. I don't see the output. The head of accounts should make a justification for promotion. See, for a very long time, I think HR has taken on the responsibilities of line management, but we have seen the light, and we are shedding ourselves of those responsibilities and giving it to where it belongs, and that is with line management. It's not with HR. It is absolutely with line managers.
Fashion, thank you so much for the
Thank
great.
you.
I really appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks a lot. Thank you very much.
To the audience, I think because we're pressed for time, we'll just take a 5-minute break so that we can use that to stretch our legs and take coffee if we're a fan of taking of coffee, and then we will regroup here and back by that will be 10 minutes past 11. So see you then. Thank you. Okay, well, welcome back, everyone, and I hope we utilize the time very well to stretch our legs and get up and running for the next presentation. And our next presenter is Mrs. Omoni Edward, and she'll be presenting on improving employee confidence and commitment. Just to read the short profile of Ms. Omoni. Ms. Omoni Edward is an astute human resource professional with a passion for human capacity building and organization and transformation. She's the head HR for the leading insurance broking firm in Nigeria, SCIB Nigeria and Company Limited. Ms. Omoni obtained a Bachelor of Science degree from the University of Lagos and a master's degree from the prestigious Manchester Metropolitan University Business School, UK, where she graduated with a distinction. And she's also an associate of the Chartered Institute of Personnel Development and Chartered Institute of Personnel Management. So Ms. Omoni, we are happy to welcome you to today's session, and we look forward to learning from you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ibrahim. Can you hear me, please?
Yes, please.
Thank you very much. It's a great honor and a pleasure to be a part of this insightful session. Thank you, GCSL, for organizing such a session. I also want to appreciate the other speakers as well. They also shared great ideas. I know this is a session where we are all looking forward to lots of things to learn and lots of things to share as well. So I'll be taking us on improving employee commitment and confidence in the workplace. So I'm going to share my slides. I have a set of slides to share. Okay. Can you all see my slides?
Yes, we can.
All right, thank you very much. Fantastic. All right, so employee confidence and commitment appear to be everyday words that we hear, confidence and commitment. But when it comes to the organization, they are much deeper than what we think it is, because they are big drivers of organizational growth, employee engagement, and productivity. So I'll be taking us through, but before we go deep, I would like to just start by setting the scene, just sharing some definitions, some theoretical principles of these two concepts. So what is confidence? I'm sure we all know what confidence is. Confidence is knowing what you're good at, the value you provide, and acting in a way that conveys that to those around you. I want us to focus on three key words: knowing, value, and acting. As we progress in this session, I'll be talking more about how it relates to us at different layers. So first, as an individual, as a person, then as an employee in a workplace, and then as HR professionals and the organization at large. So these three words, knowing, value, and acting, form the framework of confidence. So what is knowing? Knowing is basically discovering yourself as an individual. What is your purpose? Have you discovered your strengths? What are your strengths? Are you playing on your strengths? Do you know what your weaknesses are? In your area of professionalism or your area of expertise, have you gathered a body of knowledge? Have you improved on your learning over time? What is value? Value is basically the strategic application of your knowledge towards solving a problem in the workplace or in your organization. And what is acting? Acting is basically your mannerism and your behaviors that shows you have confidence. So let's set a scenario here. As an employee in an organization, you're being called upon to make a presentation, or you're in a meeting and you're asked to make a contribution, and you're suddenly shy. You have nothing to say. What does that mean? It just shows that you lack confidence. Those are the signs of not knowing what to say, short of words, or you have anxiety attack or panic attack. A lot of us have this kind of experiences. And this also takes us to a certain common phenomenon that we've all heard about, called the imposter syndrome. 70% of employees, research has shown, develop that condition. And what does it mean? It's just a feeling of doubting yourself, self-doubt, if persistent feeling of doubting, even, and it even occurs among high achievers, among high-performing individuals. It will surprise you that the number of CEOs or a lot of people in high-level positions, high knowledge level positions, have, experienced this kind of a phenomenon. But I tell you that if you're able to work on knowing, value, and acting, these 3 areas, definitely we'll be able to overcome that kind of syndrome. So now let's talk about commitment. Let's just have a little bit of definition around commitment. What is really commitment? So I want us to look at some very key words here. Feeling of responsibility, psychological attachment, and resulting loyalty of an employee to an organization. So commitment really means connection. As the previous speaker said, Mr. Fashion, he mentioned about connecting. So as an employee, have you connected to your organization? How do you connect to your organization? It starts by you first understanding the goals, the mission and vision of your organization. Do you understand the direction your organization is headed? Do you see yourself in the future of the organization? Do you see yourself contributing to the development or to the growth of the organization? So let's dig down more what commitment really is. So commitment really is a multi-dimensional construct. And there are 5 dimensions, as we can see here. There are 5 dimensions of employee commitment. So this just means that employees can have these different type of commitments towards the organization. But the most common really is affective, which is why I have it highlighted in orange here. So why is affective the most common form of commitment? It's the most common form of commitment because it's the most important, and it has the highest potential benefits to an organization. It's basically engagement, level of engagement. So the question we have to ask ourselves is, are our employees engaged? What will make our employees engaged? What will make our employees take that extra mile to apply discretionary effort to their jobs without even being told what to do? For an employee to be engaged, they have to be satisfied with their jobs. They have to be happy at work. Just like what HR Madam said, engagement is very important. Your employees have to connect with the organization. They have to have a feeling of job satisfaction. Most times when organizations run employee pulse checks time to time, and they publish the results and they tell you, oh, okay, 60% of our employees are engaged. This is what they're really talking about. The level of affection that employees have the organization. All other types of commitments are also here as well. We have affiliative, associative, moral, and structural. So, and they all speak to different aspects. So for instance, structural is more or less connected to having a fair economic exchange. So our employees rewarded related to the performance. Do we have a recognition system in our organizations? Do we have a well-structured recognition system in our organizations? The same thing with moral as well. Do our employees trust the leaders of the organization? Is accountability embedded in the organization? Our HR policies and our HR practices, does it only apply to employees, or does it also, by extension, does it also apply to leaders? Are leaders held accountable for their actions in the workplace? For associative, are employees proud of working with us? Are they proud, or do they feel privileged to be associated with the organization? Do we have an open kind of culture? What's our culture like? This is the time of reflection for us to begin to think about our organization and our culture. Culture is very, very important. What kind of culture do we have in the organization? Are people free to express themselves? Are people free to speak? Are people free to contribute? Do employees have confidence in the organization as well? What I mean by confidence in the organization, what I mean is, for instance, the organization as it is, do we have a committed corporate goal? Are we committed towards achieving our corporate objectives? How are we even doing the market space? What kind of services are we giving to our clients? Our clients or customers, are they proud of the kind of service we give to them? What's the level of our market share in the industry? These are very, very important metrics. And that's why leadership is very important. If an organization doesn't score well in these areas, then an employee will not be proud to be associated with such an organization. Now, moving on. So why have employee confidence and employee commitment taken center stage? Why? Why is it really important? Why? I mean, those are words we hear every day, but why do we really think is it really a big deal? So statistics from a recent survey conducted by Indeed shows that 97% of employees said when they feel valued by the employer, it boosts their confidence, therefore they perform better. What does that mean? So if you look at the keywords here highlighted here, feel valued by the employer, it boosts their confidence and they perform better. So that definitely means that when an employee is confident, they perform better. When an employee is confident, it increases or improves their level of productivity. When an employee is confident, it impacts the bottom line of the organization. So as a result, companies benefit from having happier, loyal, innovative, and high-performing employees who are committed to the long-term success of the company. And that's what also, describes a great culture. That's what describes a great culture of an organization. So now let's talk about drilling it down now to the workplace. And that means talking about the various generations that we have in the workplace. I have 5 here, as you can see. There's one generation that is not here, and that's Generation Alpha, and that's because they're not yet in the workplace. So basically, the 5 generations that we have here: traditionalists, baby boomers, Generation X, millennials, and Generation Z. I know we're all familiar with these various generation types, but the millennials and Generation Z the fastest growing segment of the workforce today. Of course, we still have our Generation X, who constitutes a significant size of the workforce, of the workplace. So now let's talk more about, I just want to talk around these different generations and why I think, it's very important for us to bring up this topic here in relation to talking about improving employee confidence and commitment. I'm sure you all know that these various generation types are not individuals generally, or employees, are not just put in these generation bands as a result of their age. No, not necessarily. It's because of the time they were born, the different experiences that happened at the time they were born that has now shaped their mindset. And so a lot of things happened at different times people were born. So for instance, let's look at the millennials. They grew up in the age of technology advances. And so in the workplace, what do they expect? Obviously, they use technology to drive work efficiencies. They love technology, they are tech savvy. If any latest app comes out, they want to be the ones to know about it first. They want to explore, they want to use it to drive their work, they want to use it to improve their processes. And what does that mean? So in our various workplaces, in our various organizations, are we leveraging technology? Are we leveraging technology to drive our work efficiencies? Or the kind of work that these people are doing, are they mundane kind of work? Are they manual, too manually loaded kind of operations? Are they pushing papers up and down? Have we thought about it, how we're going to constantly review our processes to apply technology to improve our work efficiencies? They also yearn work-life balance. We've been talking about having a hybrid workplace, the pandemic, the pandemic, remote working arrangements, and so on and so forth. These are the things that appeal to this kind of generation. And when it appeals to them, they stay committed to such an organization because they know that such an organization, if they can provide an enabling work environment for them that believes and delivers on all these things, then they will remain committed to such an organization. Of course, they prioritize professional development over loyalty. Comparing that with the other generation types, traditionalists and baby boomers, who are very, very loyal and are still loyal. But it's not like the millennials are not loyal, don't get me wrong, but they prioritize professional development. So what does that mean? So if they are in an organization today, they value training, they value development, they value leadership, they value mentoring. They even prefer to have leaders, coaches as leaders rather than just having a boss. So what does that mean? Having a coach who constantly gives them feedback, who constantly points them in the right direction, who constantly calls them, tells them, shares them, recognizes them, gives them a pat on the back when they're doing their job well. And how do we even give feedback to them? I'm going to discuss about how to properly give feedback to employees in the workplace, because it's an act. Giving feedback is an act. It's not just done in a ad hoc way. It's an act that we all have to learn. So let's look at Generation Z. They are new joiners to the workforce and they are digital natives. They have very high expectations of the workplace because of what they've experienced at the time they were born and even up to now. Of course, they were born in the age of technology and they yearn for flexibility. So flexibility across your policies. Are our policies too rigid? Have we thought about it? Look at the future of work. Work has changed, just like what Mr. Fashion presented earlier. Work has really changed. It's no longer the way we used to do it before. It's no longer your office having the mindset that the office is a building. No, the office is what you make of it. The office is you and I. That enabling, that environment, that collaborative relationship that we have, that's really an office. It's not the building. So what are we really doing in that space regarding keeping this generation, regarding ensuring that they are retained? Because we need them. We need them, definitely. I know there's I think General Electric many years ago when they set up this reverse mentoring, and it's all about the younger workforce mentoring the older workforce, the older generation in the area of using technology and so on and so forth. Yeah, so what are we really, taking advantage of this generation? Because they are highly needed in the workplace and they have a great deal of contribution to also give. They also value recognition. They want to be independent. So I'm going to be talking about how we can improve employee confidence and commitment. And I'll be very, very practical about some things we can do in the workplace, we can do every day, we can take from here and begin to apply it or look at how we can reinvent our HR practices. So for instance, let's talk about focusing on strength. As a leader or as a departmental head or a unit manager, you have your team working with you, maybe a team of 5 or a team of 4 people. Your team members cannot all be the same. They don't all have the same strengths. So it's your responsibility as the leader to identify the strengths and of course the weaknesses of your team members. And we should try and we must ensure that we cultivate on those strengths. We need to play on those strengths, bring out those strengths, identify the potential in your team members and bring it out. Yes, bring it out, because if we identify the strengths and leverage on the strengths of our team members, then your team member will definitely have that strong connection with the team. You have that strong attachment with your team. In terms of upskill, do we invest in education? Do we invest in trainings for our team members? Or as HR professionals, what's our training plan like? What's our development plan like? Is it just the regular, just tick box? Or do we deliberately expose our workforce? Do we really push them out to attend networking events where they meet with other colleagues or meet with other top leaders and share knowledge and improve on themselves? Do we deliberate about our approach? On reward and recognition as well. I know we have 2 general types of reward. We have extrinsic and intrinsic and psychological. But just to know that a lot of people prefer intrinsic now. Extrinsic is very important. They are the material things we see, pay, salaries, bonuses. It's very important because everybody needs that to afford their lifestyle. But intrinsic, psychological, that connects deeply to the mental well-being of your workforce. What are we doing in that space? Do we recognize good work when we see it? When our employees or our team members, within the teams, within the departments or units, when they go out of their way to deliver on key tasks in a very, very tight deadline, for instance, what do we say to them after? Do we just think it's just a normal everyday thing and then we just walk over it? No, we should try to do more in terms of recognizing our team members. Then also as HR professionals, do we have any structure or a framework to recognize and award people who are delivering exceptional work in our organization? As an organization, we all have our core values, we have our culture. And as HR professionals, we have to try to help the organization to promote that culture. So is our culture or our reward system or our recognition system, is it tied to our culture? Is it aligned with our culture? Are people getting rewarded objectively in our various organizations? Now, creating opportunities for growth is also an important area we can look at to improve employee confidence and in the workplace. Do we have a career progression framework? Is it transparent? Is it well communicated to people, to our employees? The interesting thing about the millennials and Generation Z is that They are very special and unique. They want, most of them really crave for instant gratification. And they want to see where they fall in the workplace. So I'm joining this organization today. So where will I be in the next 2 years? What's the plan the organization has for me? If they don't see that, they may want to leave the organization. So this has to be properly communicated. And if we don't have one, we have to go back to the drawing board and design one. Design a sustainable framework, a sustainable structure that's aligned with our corporate goals and objectives. In terms of the work we even give them, what kind of work are they really doing? Are they still doing the same work over and over again? HR Madam spoke about, talent mobility. And that's very interesting and very important. Are our employees still doing the same work they've been doing for the last 5 years or last 10 years? Have we looked at having, moving them around, looking at their strengths, looking at their experiences and seeing the next big thing for them? Do we even, when we have projects to do within our teams or within the organization, do we deliberately select people, our employees to do those? How do we even select people to be on those kind of projects? Do we appreciate their strengths and put them in those projects? Do we play on their strengths? On feedback, how do we give feedback to employees in the workplace? As a leader, how do you give feedback to your team members? Do we just, everybody criticize them and then tell them they did a shoddy job and that's the end? Or do we start by having a well-structured and deliberate conversation? Start by talking about how well they have been contributing to the team or to the organization. We start on a positive note. We start from an area of respect. When you start from an area of respect, your employee would definitely appreciate that and want to listen to you and listen to what you've said. Once you've set the scene of respect and telling them how well they've been contributing, then you cannot bring up the area of challenge or the gap you've observed. I'm telling you, when we adopt this approach, then we'll definitely see an employee who's ready to listen, who is open to receiving feedback. Because a lot of times I've had people saying, oh, I give my team members feedback, or I give this certain employee feedback about this issue, and they're not changing it. It's still the same thing. It's still the same, poor results I'm seeing. I'm not seeing anything. Nothing is coming out of it. It's like I wasted my time. But you need to ask yourself as a leader, how did you give that feedback? There's this theory on giving feedback called radical candor. And what it just simply means is that you're giving feedback to someone with a mindset of respecting that person, and also with the mindset of letting the person know that you personally care deeply about them. So when you give feedback, do you come from an angle of care, or you're coming from an angle of you just want to bring that person down? These are things really, really, really need to look at. They're very, very important. They may seem small, but they are really big because they have lasting, large significant impact on our organization. Now let's look at empowerment. What kind of leaders do we have in our organization? Do we have leaders that micromanage? Do we have leaders that constantly just want to just look, they keep looking, when you look back, you see them staring at you, you're working on your system, they're looking over your shoulder every point in time. You're not giving employees freedom to do their work. Employees can't take decisions. They always want to micromanage. That is not the right way to do. Mr. Yemi had mentioned that in his own presentation about leadership. A lot of organizations promote people into leadership roles based on just technical performance. They don't look at leadership capability of that individual before they promote them to leadership. So as HR professionals, what are we doing in that space in building our leaders? Do we have a deliberate program? Do we have a deliberate structure? Do we pass them through a well thought out process? Do we pass them through a well thought out developmental stage by stage, and prepare them and groom them? The same way we identify successors in the organization is the same way we should look at when we are looking at the next, who is going to be the next leader for a particular role. That's the same approach we need to take. Leadership is very, very important. There's a general saying that employees leave bosses, they don't leave organizations. Yes, that is true to a reasonable extent. So how do we relate with our employees? How do we relate with them? How do we give feedback? How do we talk to them at the workplace? How do we recognize their work in the workplace? Do we deliberately have training, good training programs for them, and not just tick box kind of training? So it should be a program such that you are building their competence level by level by level by level. And they also see that they are also improving. Do we expose them? Do we deliberately, schedule them to attend networking events or various events where they can meet and interact with people within the industry? Those kind of things will also build their confidence as well, because you're building their knowledge by training them. You're also building their self-esteem because they're able to rub shoulders with their colleagues within the industry. Now let's look at discussing in detail how we can apply our learnings across the whole HR value chain and HR practices. So I'm just going to be very practical here. So I've brought about 5 key areas that we can look at, just being very, very practical. Looking at our talent acquisition practices, for instance, we're talking about employee commitment, improving employee commitment, and improving employee confidence. So when we're looking to hire, how is our recruitment campaign like? What kind of wordings or what kind of message do we have in our various recruitment vacancies? Do we convey our values as an organization? Do we reiterate that in our campaigns? Do we talk about our organization when we do in our various recruitment adverts? Do we even hire the right people? What kind of people are we really looking at? Because if you hire the wrong people into your organization, definitely there's going to be a misalignment. Do we project our employer brand? Do we even measure our brand, how it's really doing well? How strong is our brand in the industry? Do we have an employee value proposition? And if we do, is it well communicated to people around us? Do they know about it? Because if we don't project these things, if we don't communicate these things to potential people out there, then they wouldn't know about us and they wouldn't probably even take us seriously. So this is a starting point for us to begin to build that commitment or even begin to improve it. Because if you push out your employee value proposition, you project your brand, you talk about how you are as an organization, then people out there will be attracted to your purpose. They'll be attracted to your purpose and want to join the organization. They will be aligned. They will be aligned with your values, with your purpose. And it won't be difficult for you to begin to encourage them to be committed. Now, reward practices. Do we have a holistic approach to reward practices? So for instance, is our compensation structure competitive? When last did we carry out a market survey to go find out our position in the market? Are reward systems transparent and appealing? Okay. All right, so are reward systems appealing? Are they transparent? Are they even promoting our culture? I know I've talked about this in prior slides. Learning and development, what's our approach? Learning and development has really changed a great deal. Now, there's now more virtual learning now as against classroom-based. And we, as HR professionals, what are we doing in that space? Are we encouraging our employees to adopt that online direction? Or are we still stuck in our old ways? How do we deliver trainings? Do we have e-learning platforms so that employees can learn on the go? These are the things that appeal to certain generation types. They are tech savvy, they love technology, they love to, the latest app when it comes out, they want to know about it. So apart from even, the kind of work that they do, how it's delivered and the work processes, also for learning as well. We can't exclude that. Have we invested in e-learning platforms for them to learn on the go? Do we invest enough in their trainings and their development? I know of certain, individuals some time ago talking about their experiences so far in their various organizations. And one of them said, I've not even attended a single training since I joined my organization. And this is someone that has worked in the place for like 2 years. So what are we doing as HR professionals? What are we doing? I know there've been several questions on this platform regarding, okay, so, most business leaders don't want to support our HR initiatives, but how are we presenting these HR initiatives? We have to relate well with data and come from an angle of the business. HR is not for HR. HR is for the business. We have to come from that angle and push our agenda forward so that business leaders would see the benefit of investing in such initiatives before they can, approve whatever it is they want to do. Onboarding practice is very, very important. When we hire new people to join our organization, do we have a deliberate plan for them to ease their way into the system? How do we get them settled into the organization? Do we have a robust program, a robust plan for them? Or do we even prepare for them before they even arrive? So for instance, are their work tools ready before they join the organization? Are their emails ready before they join the organization? Do we have all these things ready? How do we make them feel welcome when they join the organization? It's like I said, it starts right. Commitment starts right from, before they even join the organization to when they start on their first day. Commitment is not when the employee has already spent years in the organization. It starts right from that stage. So what are we doing? Do we have a body system in our onboarding program? Do we have that? How do we ensure that our new hires fit into the organization culture when they join us? Do we run all those programs for them? Now let's talk about performance management. This is also a very, very key area. We need to reinvent our performance management practices. We can't keep doing it the way we've been doing it 10, 15 years ago. A lot of changes have come up. How do we even set KPIs for our team members? As HR professionals, do we have a structure around guiding leaders towards setting corporate objectives for their departments that will not get cascaded to their team members? Or how do our leaders is there a collaborative effort in setting goals and KPIs within teams and within departments or within units? Gone are the days of dumping goals on employees and giving it to them. That's your goal. No, there has to be a collaborative, a joint discussion between the leader and the employee, or the leader and the team member, on how to set their goals. And what kind of goals do we set? Are these goals connected to the corporate objectives? So as HR professionals, do we have a system in place to ensure that there's an alignment, that what employees are doing actually reflects in their goals? Many years ago, there was this thing about, okay, we need to set SMART goals. Our goals have to be SMART. Of course, SMART, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound. Now, some years back, we now moved to FAST. People need to set FAST goals. That's frequent, ambitious, specific, and transparent goals. Now, there's a publication I read recently that now talks about PACT goal setting. That's purposeful, actionable, continuous, and trackable. So we need to go back and think about these things. We need to reinvent our general HR practices, not only on performance management, but generally, what's our approach towards managing our employees as HR professionals? How do we guide our business leaders? How do we guide our leaders? How do we guide heads of departments? How do we guide line management towards ensuring that they're properly managing and relating well with employees in the workplace? These are very, very important things that we need to think about this morning. And I can tell you that when we go back and look at how we've been doing this, I'm sure we will be able to, if you think on these things, we'll be able to, come up with a direction towards how we're going to go about improving these practices that we're talking about. So in general, benefits of improving. So we've talked about commitment, we've talked about confidence, we've talked about HR practices that we are doing, what we're not doing right, how we can improve. So obviously, there are a lot of benefits we can get from improving employee confidence and commitment. So the first one is advocate for the business. Obviously, a confident employee and a committed employee definitely is an advocate for the business. They will be brand ambassadors for your various organizations. And you know what that means. They go out there, they share their experiences with various friends in various organizations, and the word goes around the industry. Oh, this organization has a fantastic culture. This organization does this, and people will yearn, people will rush, or people will yearn to, they will long to join your business. And one very practical impact on this is even for resourcing. When you have various vacancies, you need to open as an HR manager. It won't be difficult for you to fill up those vacancies because you have a lot of applications rushing as a result of the good word that your brand ambassadors have already spread around the industry. So it's very important that we ensure that our employees have fantastic experiences in the workplace. Committed and confident employees are more productive and they are engaged. We've talked about that before. And they are willing to contribute and willing to innovate as well. If there is any project or anything to be done in the organization, it won't be difficult for you to get people to raise up their hands to say they are interested because they're engaged, because they are committed, because they're interested, because they're empowered, because their leaders don't micromanage them. The leaders have created an enabling environment for them to be open, to pass on ideas, to discuss openly about their ideas. If they don't have leaders that shut them down, they are free to talk and communicate. They are open to learning and development. They are open to new things. When we talk about organizational transformation, when an organization decides, okay, we want to be agile, for instance, let's move away from our waterfall approach of doing things. Let's now be very agile in our thinking, our processes, and all that. And then the organization of business leaders now come up with a very beautiful strategy document. I'm telling you that strategy can fail if you don't have employees to drive those strategies. It's as good as it failed. But when you have committed and confident employees, they will be open to change. They will embrace change faster. They're open to new opportunities. They are already used to it because even at the departmental level, as leaders, you're already creating or reinventing their work for them. They're not bogged down with, buckled down with boring work. Technology is used to drive their work processes. There's no, the work processes in the organization are not rigid. We constantly reinvent and review our processes for them to ensure that they have this very exciting, experience at work regarding the operations and what have you. And of course, stronger mental well-being. All this speaks to our psyche as well. There's a psychological connection to this. That's why I took time at the beginning to explain and to define the concepts of confidence and commitment, because it all starts with the individual as well. So in conclusion, employee confidence and commitment are both business necessities. They are continuous concepts and they have to be maintained. As professionals, we need to constantly promote a work culture that supports confidence and commitment. As HR professionals, we have to reinvent. We have to change the narrative. We have to change the game. A lot of things are changing now. The workplace has changed. Employees are now expecting more and more from the organization. So as HR professionals, what are we doing in that space? We need to change the narrative. We need to work with business leaders. We need to be strategic in our approach towards things. We need to connect to the business. HR is not about HR. HR is about the business. We are here to give value to the organization. Value is not defined by us as HR. Value is defined by the receiver. So we have to constantly, I like what Mr. Fashion said about design thinking. Yes, we have to, before we, design, come up with the process, we have to put ourselves in that situation and see, work it out, and step by step to see how employees would feel or would react when we are bringing in those changes. Everything is just about creating a fantastic experience for employees. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Edward. Thank you for sharing your words of knowledge and experience with us this morning. I really appreciate your time. And I quite agree with you that creating opportunities for growth in terms of career advancement for employee, rewarding them objectively, and also constructive feedback generally will improve the employees' confidence and commitment in the workplace. I think I will open the chat box for audience to send in a question so that Ms. Edward will address it accordingly. Okay, so while we're waiting for the question to pop in, I think we'll just deploy the poll now so we can get feedback from the audience. Okay, I think I have one question for you. One of the audience has asked for the full meaning of FACT, F-A-C-T, FACT, P-A-C-T, and FAST, F-A-S-T.
Okay. So the full meaning of FAST is frequent, ambitious, specific, and transparent, while PACT is purposeful, actionable, continuous, and trackable.
Okay, so another question by one of the audience is that, would you say that the personality of an employee, extrinsic or intrinsic, also affects the level of engagement or commitment that can be achieved? Yes, or you want me to repeat the question again?
Yes, please.
Okay. Would you say that the personality of an employee, either extrinsic or intrinsic, also affects the level of engagement or commitment that can be achieved?
Okay, so let's look at it this way. Okay, so I mentioned in my slides, my presentation, I've made a distinction between extrinsic rewards and intrinsic rewards, and I mentioned that extrinsic rewards are the material rewards, that tangible things, pay, bonuses, and what have you, while intrinsic are more psychologically rooted, mentally. Things like accolades, praises, and what have you. So for me, I don't think it's really more of a personality kind of thing. I know some people who, it depends. I know some people who may prefer extrinsic rewards, but what I'm trying to say is that generally, especially now with these generations that we have in the workplace now, a lot of them are more attuned towards intrinsic rewards. They want to hear from their leaders. They want to hear from their mentors and their coaches that they're doing a good job, well done. Are we waiting to give feedback to them, or are we waiting to recognize them only during their appraisal time? So how well do we give this kind of feedback? So I don't really think it's about really a personality kind of thing. I think generally, people are more open towards, receiving that kind of intrinsic feedback or intrinsic reward from their bosses.
All right. So thank you very much. Thank you for your time. I don't think we have any question. here again. So thank you very much for your time. We appreciate the knowledge you've shared with us this morning. Thank you so much. Our next presenter is Mr. Anthony Alagbile, and he will be presenting on understanding emotional intelligence and mental health in the workplace.
Let me try to share my slide.
Okay, Mr. Anthony Alagbile is a chartered occupational psychologist from the British Psychological Society. He holds a first-class honors degree in psychology from the Obafemi Awolowo University, and also holds a Master of Education degree in Mind, Brain, and Education from Harvard University. His areas of expertise include executive coaching and mentoring, career management system, international business partnership, psychological testing, etc. He has also worked with a multidisciplinary team of thought leaders to introduce entrepreneurship in Africa as a semester-long course at Harvard University. His experience covers a wide range of industry, including the oil and gas, manufacturing sector, and ICT. Mr. Alagbile, you are highly welcome to today's breakfast session, and we look forward to
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Let me share my screen. See there. Can you see my screen, please?
Yes, sir, we can.
Okay, you can. Very good. Good. Trying to put it on slide. Okay, good. It's afternoon already. Okay, almost. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's a privilege to be with you this morning/afternoon. And I mean, I'm deliberately taking, the heat of the sun and the warmth of the sun because it's part of my, wellness recipes, wellness strategies. So that's why you can see, I mean, this place is a bit bright. I just opened the window wide. Okay, so I'm supposed to share with you, or I'm sharing with you today, the topic, understanding emotional intelligence and conflict management in the workplace. So, I mean, I had to reframe the topic a bit to be able to, to make it more holistic and more connected. That's why you can see that there's a slight tweak, understanding emotional intelligence and conflict in the workplace. So what's the outline? First, we'll be looking at background to emotional intelligence and some basic premises and context. Then we'll look at, Daniel Goleman, who is the father of emotional intelligence. We'll look at his work, the Daniel Goleman's model, and that's, of course, the bedrock of, emotional intelligence. Then we'll look at emotional intelligence and workplace performance. Then, of course, emotional intelligence and financial performance. You understand why this is so, very shortly. Then we'll look at emotional intelligence and conflict resolution / management in workplace. Then we'll conclude. And by way of introduction, I would like to say that when you talk about emotional intelligence, most leaders, most HR practitioners, find it difficult to connect the dots. I've done, I would say, nothing less than 70 emotional intelligence trainings. And at the beginning of the training, people start to wonder, why do I even need to know about emotional intelligence? And until we start to unpack, to go deep into the research that shows that that intangible construct called emotional intelligence has all-pervading effect, has far-reaching, sweeping effect on organizational performance, on team performance, and on individual performance. And of course, we are not just looking at it as a soft issue or a soft topic, like we say, soft skills. Let me shock you to let you know that the skills we call soft are now, in this time and age, they are now the hard skills, because they're very difficult to learn. Otherwise, if you're calling something soft, why, is everybody not, embodying it? Why is everybody not, practicing it? And that's why today, things like emotional intelligence, things like taking initiative, those, either to soft skills are now moving into the mainstream, as hard skills. So we'll look at that in context. So let me start with two very important quotes that set the stage for emotional intelligence. First is by Reynolds and Vince, 2004. And one thing with me is, I believe so much in the power of research, the power of I would say connecting theory to practice to help us understand. And what this guy said, they are well-known researchers and practitioners in the emotional intelligence space, the leadership space. They said that every organization is an emotional place. In fact, I dare to say that every aspect of our life, from family to school to workplace to church to mosque, anywhere we find ourselves is an emotional place, because it's a human invention serving human purposes and dependent on human beings to function. That's why it's an emotion. And emotion is what creates and sustains a system. If there is no emotion, there cannot be a workplace. If there is no emotion, there cannot be a home. If there is no emotion, there can't be a place of worship. So it's the emotion that connects us to every other construct, like say spirituality, physical health, financial wealth, and all the like. So it's a connecting dot. Now, this quote, the one I'm going to read now, has been linked to what we call the importance of emotional intelligence in the business world. And a high school principal 25 years ago addressed a class of graduating students. And what did he say? He said in 20 years, the A students will probably work for the B students who manage companies owned and run by C students. Now, this is not to glorify, mediocrity, right, in school. After all, for me, I did very well in school. But what we have seen over and over again is that, people who tend to focus on the hard skills, intellectual capabilities and capacities, to the detriment of the soft, seemingly soft side, at the end of the day, they end up being relegated to the background. In fact, when people are promoted at the highest level, the first and most important, case that is made for them is how emotionally intelligent they are, even if it is not spoken. So this is, very important, to note. Aristotle, as we know him, a philosopher who lived, several thousands of years ago, said that anyone can become angry. That is easy. But to be angry with the right person, to the right degree, at the right time, for the right purpose, and in the right way, that is not easy. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is the crux, is the core, the foundation of emotional intelligence. Creating that balance, that stability in the way we understand ourselves, in the way we relate to ourselves, in the way we understand other people and relate with them. That's essentially what Aristotle's challenge is talking about. Now, let's look at how did this school of thought, emotional intelligence, how did it evolve? It evolved from the 1970s, but I can tell you that emotional intelligence has been there from the beginning of time. So it's just like all these leadership theories. We say, oh, the transactional theory, transformational theory, they have all been there, but people now model them into what we call construct or theories, and they now went deeper to explain what they mean. So in the 1970s, people were best identifying other people's emotions, who were best at identifying other people's emotions, were more successful. in their work. So this was something that, researchers observed, and articulated, very clearly and eloquently in the 1970s. So that was the norm then. So people were focusing on how do I manage my emotion so I can be able to relate to others well and become successful. So the idea of being a success at work was linked to being able to identify other people's emotion, which is a core component of emotional intelligence. And in the 1980s and early 90s, empathy came to the limelight. And it was indicated as particularly important. And that was where the emotional intelligence movement was launched. And in the mid-90s to 2002, that was the buzz, then. And Daniel Goleman further drilled down, and he gave us the model, of emotional intelligence. But this model has even existed even in the early 80s from a guy called Howard Gardner. He proposed what we call multiple intelligences. And the multiple intelligence theory, there are two intelligences: intrapersonal, intra meaning myself, within me, then interpersonal. So this was already propounded several years ago. But Daniel Goleman now brought these two aspects, and then he coined it into the model of emotional intelligence. And from 2002 and beyond, ladies and gentlemen, this is very, very important. People were becoming skeptical, and about emotional intelligence. Some people even say, is this thing not overhyped? Are we not just, glorifying something that should have, to play second fiddle in terms of organizational performance and health? But such as went further, and there is now the widespread recognition that emotional bottom line supports the financial bottom line. So as HR practitioners who are here, I want us to notice that if you can show management how the emotional intelligence of your employees, of your managers, of your leadership, how it impacts bottom line, if you can show that in clear terms, you have done the job. And of course, there are tons of research, that state and show this. Our emotions are often contagious. So this is the theory of contagion. We want our workplaces to be lively, to be emotionally charged positively. And we say that when a workplace is emotionally charged negatively, you find out that people's morale starts to, dampen. People tend to have what we call mental blocks, because the emotional affects the mental affects intellectual affects performance. So what researchers have shown constantly is that when it comes to emotional intelligence, there is a part of the energy around us. So a lot of researchers in the science field now, core science, they have found out that around us, if you stretch your hand like this, as far as you can stretch your hand, that field, if you draw a cycle around it, it is called the peripersonal space. The peripersonal space, if you draw a cycle. And they say that that space has a lot of energy from our internal magnetic system, from our brain, and whatever we do in that space affects not only us, it also affects others. So when you have somebody who is always toxic, a toxic boss, a toxic employees, it charges that field, that energy field, as far as you can turn your hand, right? All the way. And what happens? It contaminates the environment. It pervades the environment, and it affects people's relationships, it affects their productivity and their performance. I believe I'm making a case gradually for emotional intelligence in the workplace. So it's the ability to perceive and apply the emotion to life tasks, to reason and understand emotions, to express emotions, to use emotions, and to manage emotions. So you can see there's a whole lot of, I would say, dimensions to this thing called emotional intelligence. Of course, ability to apply it, to your daily life and tasks. Then understanding your emotion, which is what most people have not been able to crack. It's a code that most people need to learn to crack. And that's why in expressing emotions, they express emotions in a very wrong way, and in ways that even are deleterious, ways that are toxic, and I would say poisonous to the environment around them because they can't express their emotions well. And then using emotions to facilitate thinking, this is where performance comes in. This is where cognition, mental focus comes in. If your emotions are all over the place, you can't think very well. So emotional intelligence is also using your emotions to facilitate thinking. So you can see how gradually it is affecting performance. Then ability to manage your performance. And the underlying premise here is that people who are more sensitive to their emotions and their impact on others will be more effective across the spectrum of leadership and non-leadership roles. But again, we said that as you climb the ladder in the organization, emotional intelligence becomes more prominent because at that point, you must have mastered the technical skills that you need to do your job. So if you are not emotionally intelligent, you give yourself away. So it's very, very important to note. Okay, so these are different schools of thought that look at the focus of emotional intelligence. According to Northouse 2016, it's a set of mental abilities, like I said. And of course, I can see why DCSL said emotional intelligence and mental health. Yes. So I didn't mention mental health, but I want you to know that the emotional health is inextricably, you cannot separate it from mental health. So this guy said is a set of mental abilities that include perceptions, facilitation, understanding, managing of emotions. Then Goleman, of course, I've already talked about Goleman, we'll look at his model very shortly. Then another set of guys, Sharman and Allen, 2002, they said that these guys were talking about emotional intelligence and leadership. And they said that the three aspects of leadership, core aspects, are actually linked to emotional intelligence. So first is, in leadership, you understand the context, right? Then you understand yourself and you understand others. And they said that that's the reason why it is very essential to transformational leadership. Then Learning in Action Technologies 2010 said that the three competencies, these are the three competencies that are foundational for developing a wide range of competencies and skills are self-reflection, self-regulation, and empathy. And again, we'll see that shortly in Daniel Goleman's model. Self-reflection meaning your ability to be in tune with how you are feeling, how you are thinking, how you are perceiving, how you are attending attention to the different events around you, to the different people around you, to different emotions around you. So they look at it from that angle. Okay, this is the model, Daniel Goleman's model. So Daniel Goleman actually he simplified emotional intelligence for. So if you as a practitioner, as a leader, if you are trying to understand emotional intelligence, everything subsumed into these four quadrants, right? And the first quadrant says that first, man, know thyself, self-awareness. Then the other one is, once you know yourself, you'll be able to manage yourself. It's just like, understanding what your triggers are. Oh, I can see that. Oh, most times when I'm stressed, I become more volatile. I can just, flare up easily. That's self-awareness, right? So with that, you can now say, okay, if that's the case, if my manager raises his voice, or if my manager shouts down at me, or I would say criticizes my work destructively, what I will do is simple. I'll try as much as possible to have a deep breath. 3 deep breaths, and I'll calm my emotional state, and I don't just respond, vigariously, or I don't respond spontaneously, such that it kills, the environment. That's self-management. Then three is social awareness. If you have understood yourself and managed yourself very well, then you need to become the psychologist that now understands how different people, the different personality types, how they relate, how they understand the world, and how they work, work best. Because as we know, different people, different styles, give different results. So you need to be able to understand that and then manage each person. That's what we call situational leadership. Those of us in the leadership space, situational leadership. So once you know people very well, in and out, and uniquely according to what they bring to the workplace, then you can now manage them very well. and a Goldman 2002. So these are the different dimensions. I will not go into detail, in all of them, for all of them, because of time. So, but of course, these slides, I'll make it available. But to see quickly the dimensions, I was telling you that many years ago, Howard Gardner has said that there are two parts to us. It's two parts of the multiple intelligences. There are like 8 or 9 multiple intelligences, but 2 of them that he propounded many years ago is intrapersonal and interpersonal. So Daniel Goleman now put it into the emotional intelligence model to say that self-awareness and self-management is the intrapersonal part of us, right? Of the emotional intelligence space. And then under self-awareness, emotional self-awareness, accurate self-assessment, and self-confidence. The previous speaker, Mr. Somoni, talked about confidence, right? Which is a psychological construct. So once people are very aware of themselves, they become more confident, to clients, in the midst of clients, in the midst of their fellow, employees. Then self-management, there are 4 key dimensions to it: self-control, conscientiousness, adaptability, and achievement orientation. Let me just dwell a bit on achievement orientation. We're talking about the fact that people who have heightened emotional intelligence, they perform better than those who don't have, high emotional intelligence. The reason is because those who can manage themselves well, they are achievement oriented, because they can organize themselves, they can be able to harmonize their thoughts with their emotions and be able to plan, which is a function of our prefrontal cortex, a frontal lobe. They can plan well, meaning that they can execute well. Because one of my managers used to say those days that 90% of performance is planning. So the fact that these guys can plan well, harmonize themselves very well, means that they are achievement oriented and they can achieve their goals in time and according to the budget set out for them. Then social awareness. Organization, it consists of organizational awareness. This is where you need to have a deep knowledge of your culture, the culture of your organization. There's what we call organizational culture and climate. They are all related, and it's part of social awareness. People who have that deep knowledge of the organizational climate, of the organizational culture, they are more socially aware and then more emotionally intelligent. And social skills. This is where leadership comes in. Your ability to influence people is what we call catalyzing change. You are able to, when you enter a place like this, man, they know the person don't come. You are able to create an atmosphere where people become result-oriented. You are able to engender an atmosphere where people say, whoa, we want to follow this guy, because he has that man, he has that courage, he has that gravitas, like one of our professors would say, he has the gravitas. So that is what we call social skills, and it's a key component of emotional intelligence. Now, the case for emotional intelligence. So those of us who are HR practitioners and need to convince management maybe to invest in an emotionally intelligent workplace, to invest in maybe trainings, leadership development, staff development that focus on emotional intelligence. This is what the research says, and we are not making it up. 70% of employees' perception of working climate is linked to the EQ of the leader. This is massive, ladies and gentlemen. Just look at that. 70% of what we perceive as the climate is linked to the EQ. I just mentioned it in the last slide, because the leader, the team lead, the supervisor carries with him or her the seed that can poison, the seed that can, what's it called now, make people to grow and achieve their potential. Then 2, according to George and Bertrand Russell, 1990, they said that the positive mood of a leader at work promotes worker effectiveness and retention. And Mrs. Omoni said that people don't leave organizations, they leave the leaders. And this is one classic example of what the research says along that line. It's key to staff and employee retention. Then team members tend to share mood, both good and bad, with better moods improving performance. These are the guys. I don't want to call all their names, no time. 1998. So you can go back and show your management team, show your leaders, how emotional intelligence is key, to performance and to financial performance, at that. McClellan, 1998, they reviewed data from 30 organizations. And these 30 organizations are actually multinationals, not just, one moi company out there. 30 multinationals, Fortune 500. And they found out that EQ competencies as compared to IQ. IQ is what makes you to become a performer in the technical side. You're able to, analyze data, develop or write code, program, whatever it is, right? Compared to IQ, EQ competencies is found, right, to distinguish top performance. And we have seen that over and over again. The primary causes of derailment in executive involve deficit in EQ. I've already said that before. And this is why even when they want to promote people to maybe become directors, and senior managers in companies that are serious in code, they take them through an assessment and development center. If they see any traces of traits, construct that can derail the executive, they will not promote the person. And of course, we say that it is core to balancing work, school, and life. Okay, essential. EQ is essential for effective leadership, team success, quality-based work processes and products, and increased productivity across every profession. Whether it's the mason's work, whether it's a laborer's work, the bricklayer's work, or whether it's a data analytics professional, a programmer, a lawyer, an accountant, right? It is very, very important. It is, in fact, it is essential to effective performance. Increasingly, expected skill and competency for hiring is driven along the line of how emotionally intelligent people are, because now we are working remotely. The world of work is changing. There's what we call the great resignation, right? A lot of people are dumping their employers, and what employers want to see more now is, employees who are able to demonstrate high sense of emotional intelligence. So if we're going to recruit you into our organization, we want to be sure that you won't just dump us like a boyfriend or a girlfriend would dump his or her boyfriend or girlfriend. I mean, as a lot of our millennials and Gen Z do these days, before you know, next day just come and the person is not at work, no resignation letter, no notice. So we want to be able to place more emphasis on emotional intelligence in hiring people in the workplace, and we're seeing the trend. Emotional intelligence is intrinsic to several leadership styles. All the leadership styles, from transformational to adaptive to transactional, EQ is essential. Okay, let me just quickly watch. Performance, financial performance. This is another study that shows that it's a study of divisional heads of a global food and beverage company. I won't mention the name. Maybe one of them is even here, right? They showed that leaders with EQ competencies outperformed revenue targets by 15 to 20%. You know what that means? If I'm doing 1 billion. Excuse me. Hello? Hello? He said? Hello? Hello? I thought someone was saying something. Okay. So the difference between 1 billion and 1.2 billion is what we are talking about here. So for people who have EQ, they can make as much as 200 million naira or dollars, whatever the case may be, and their counterparts whose EQs are not high. So this is a study that at least, nails it when it comes to the impact of emotional intelligence on financial performance. After supervisors in a manufacturing company received EQ training, so I think it was a 3-day training, and they mostly focused on listening, effective listening and effective conflict resolution. Lost time accidents were reduced by 50%, ladies and gentlemen. 50%. Formal grievances were reduced from an average of 15 per year to 3 per year. Ladies and gentlemen, is this not a classic case of optimized performance for your organization if you are in this position, if this is your case? And they said that plant, they exceeded productivity by $250,000. Peruzic and Bayam 1992. So, I mean, it's a no-brainer that we just have to give due attention. In fact, increasing focus to emotional intelligence. Because if we do, we will do better than our competitors and we'll fight and win the war for talent, as we say in the HR space. Then how do we resolve and build consensus leveraging emotional intelligence? So this is simple. As you can, deduce now and conclude, anybody who is emotionally intelligent, right? Intelligent will be able to manage conflict easily, because conflict is about difference in views, different in opinions, and that is as a result of differences in the way we think, in the way we feel, in the way we emote as emotion, right? That's what creates conflict. So it's something to note that when people understand that conflict is normal, conflict is something that must happen in everyday life, they start to manage it more easily because they understand, they become more empathic, with other people. And then they're able to build consensus. Social competence, one of the core aspects of emotional intelligence, now I talked about 4 of them, is key to emotional intelligence in the workplace. And this is manifested in the fact that being able to manage conflict and lead a group of people to achieve results is inextricably tied to how socially competent people is. Because I've already explained why a socially competent person can be able to manage conflict as easily as possible. They say 3 things in life are constant: death, change, and taxes. We might as well add conflict to the mix, because whether it's in our home, whether it's in the workplace, whether it's in our place of worship, whether it's in the marketplace, anywhere we find ourselves, because we are humans, because we have our perceptions, we have our emotions, we have our feelings, everything means that we must act differently and we must think differently. So that means that we'll have conflict every time. So is conflict always bad? No. It is not the way we resolve it, which is what we call in the emotional intelligence, framework. We talk about social skills. These are social skills that enable us to negotiate and negotiate from a position of strength to reach a win-win with other people. Successful conflict resolution depends on the ability to manage stress. I said it earlier, when you are in a stressful situation, it shuts down your thinking mind. And what happens is that you become more impulsive, you become more irrational, in dealing with other people. By staying calm, you can accurately read and interpret verbal and non-verbal communication. So in conflict management and resolution, this is not a conflict management and resolution class. We say that in trying to resolve conflict, you must be an expert reader of verbal and non-verbal cues. And this feeds back to how emotionally intelligent are. People who are emotionally intelligent, you can deal with them accordingly, in terms of their personality types, their frameworks in thinking, and so on and so forth. Control your emotions and behavior. When this happens, you can communicate your needs without threatening, fighting, or punishing others. So in conflict resolution and in negotiation, we say that when people are able to control their emotions, they don't come across as domineering. They don't come across as imposing. They don't come across as frightening. So in that way, you will find out that you are stooping low to conquer, as the novel we read those days, we say, you stoop low to conquer, meaning that in trying to become calm, managing, controlling your emotions, people see you as open-minded. People see you as not having a fixed mindset, like Carol Dweck would say. And pay attention to the feelings being expressed, as well as spoken words of others. I've talked about it, verbal and non-verbal. Aware of the respect and respectful of differences. And know that those skilled in managing conflicts and spot trouble as it is brewing, and take steps to harm those involved. Here, the hearts of listening and empathizing, which is which are key aspects of emotional intelligence, are crucial to handling difficult people. So you know that in conflict resolution and management, you meet a lot of difficult people. At your workplace with your managers, your colleagues, sometimes you meet difficult people. So effective conflict management and negotiation are important to long-term symbiotic business relationship between you, your employees, your colleagues, and your clients. According to Daniel Goleman, it was once thought that components of emotional intelligence were nice to have in business, managers and leaders. That was then. But now, as we know it, for the sake of performance, these are ingredients. So when you say ingredients, essential ingredients that managers and leaders need to have, in fact, must have, according to Daniel Goleman. Otherwise, we will find ourselves, whiling in that cycle of underperformance, or just average performance. To become superior, exceptional performers, we must take the ingredients of emotional intelligence very seriously. And just to conclude, sorry, just a second. To conclude, I would say, physician, heal thyself. To understand others, you need to understand yourself, your personality. And this requires emotional intelligence. And I said that there are 4 aspects, which is first, understanding yourself. We call it, self-awareness. Then apart from self-awareness, we talk about self-management. When you're able to have a good grasp on that, then you can be able to understand others, which we call, social awareness. And the final one, being able to manage others, being able to relate with others, which is, social skills or social management. Emotional intelligence is both essential for team and workplace performance. And we've been able to establish that, in the foregoing slides. Emotional intelligence has huge impact on financial performance, aka organizational bottom line. And conflict is inevitable. Then we must learn to resolve, manage conflict, and build consensus if we must become an emotionally intelligent workplace. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. It's about 30 minutes plus. I'll leave for questions.
Mr. Lebele, thank you very much for sharing your wealth of knowledge with us. And I quite agree with you. Every one of us in the workplace and the team as a whole requires, emotional intelligence, to function very well, to be an effective leader, and also generally, which is very key to any organization, to improve their revenue base. And
thank you.
I need to be open to audience now to drop in that question so that Mr. Alibile can address it accordingly. And while we're waiting for the questions to drop in, I think we will now deploy the poll so that we can get your feedback on Mr. Alibile's presentation. Okay, audience, thanks for completing the poll. Mr. Alibile, thank you very much. I think you've done 100% justice to this.
Thank you.
This presentation. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yes.
Oh, okay. We use the opportunity to inform the audience about us, DCSL Corporate Services Limited, and what we do. And as presented, these are the following services. We provide expert training for directors and senior management. We also carry out induction for both executive and non-executive directors. We carry out board retreats and strategy session. Also carry out board evaluation and peer review, codification of board and committee charters. We also carry out business advisory and regulatory compliance, business recovery and insolvency, company setup, company secretarial, executive talent recruitment, also director selection, and we also carry out remuneration surveys and benchmarking. And these, we want to also inform you about our upcoming training. We're having a training on board effectiveness, a key imperative, which will come up on Thursday, 17th and the 18th of March 2022. And we also have another upcoming training on the board share first amongst people, which we also come up very soon in the coming months. These flyers will be shared across social media. Please kindly share it with your colleagues, and you also you're also invited, and you also can share it with your board also. And we also have the training on the role of the CFO as a strategic partner, which also is slated for 31st of March 2022. Thank you very much. I want to use also this opportunity to thank all our facilitators for sharing their wealth of experience and knowledge with us. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you. And to the audience, thank you very, very much for staying put to the end of the session. And we believe that you've gained a lot from this session. And we look forward to you, joining our other webinars. Thank you very much, and wishing you a great day ahead.